Opening night of the NBA season is close. It's Tuesday, October 18th. Do you think the Golden State Warriors can repeat? To celebrate the start of the season, we are offering you a 7-day NBA package for only $49. Yes, that's only $7 a day, and it will be valid through Sunday, October 23rd at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo. There is no limit to the number of handicappers that you can get. Just head to your favorite capper's homepage.
Welcome, everyone, to Inside the Distance. UFC 280 is finally here. Huge card, probably the biggest one of the year. I am Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com. Joining me, as always, my fellow UFC experts, Kyle Anthony from WagerTalk.com, Matt Kowalis from SportsMemo.com. We're going to be breaking down the big three, the big three fights: Oliveira, Makhachev, Sterling, Dillashaw, Jan O'Malley. We're going to go over fights that we're excited to watch, and then we're going to go over our Parlay Buster, our fight to go the distance, and our money line pick of the week. That's minus 200 or better. We got a ton of stuff to get to. We do have a promo code that's exciting for this week, UFC 50. That's UFC 50. Get you 50% off of any of our fight packs. Kyle has a 5% play up at WagerTalk.com. I have a 5% play up at WagerTalk.com. Matt already has a 4-fight pack at SportsMemo.com. That promo code works for all of us. You can choose 1, you can choose 2, you can choose 3. Why not choose 3? 50% off. We're all on a lot of different fights, so why not cash on all 3 of us? Gentlemen, we're going to get into breaking down the fights. But before we can predict the future, we got to learn from the past. So let's go to the classroom. We're going to talk about one thing that we learned from the last event. Matt, I'm coming to you first. What did you learn from the last UFC event?
So in the last UFC event, I learned that a minus 400 favorite maybe should not be a favorite after just one UFC win. And we saw that with Victor Henry in the last fight, and he did. He had a very impressive showing over Raoni Barcelos, if I said that correct. Beating Barcelos, he was a huge underdog, and then in his second fight against Rafael Assunção, he was a huge favorite. Assunção is a UFC veteran. Has been getting knocked out like crazy, no doubt, but someone who is a UFC vet, he has seen a lot of different fight styles throughout the UFC. So I think going forward, I might take a deeper look into these minus 400, 300, 200 favorites who just have one fight in the UFC.
Matt, did you know that Victor Henry was in trouble when he did his 15th kick to the body that Assunção caught and took him down with? Or was it the 14th one? It was just...
I think I knew he was in trouble when Assunção was just standing like this. Like, he just was like, I don't care.
Against the fence.
Yeah, against the fence.
He was doing this. He was like, do it. Yeah. Do it again.
He's like, I don't care.
Yeah, bad fight IQ from Victor Henry. So, yeah, it's a great point, Matt. One UFC fight does not make you a minus 400 favorite. Kyle, coming to you, what did you learn from the last event?
I learned, listen, we all kind of, I think we're on the same side here when it comes to Alexa Grasso, but she is for real. I think really she is putting it all together. She's checking all the boxes. When she first started, kind of her rise, I guess, in the UFC, it really was good boxing, good footwork, good, moving around the cage and then stepping back out. Just all about how she's really angling her combinations. And really was the weakness was going to be the grappling. It was going to be weak grappling. It was going to be that, we saw spars that take her down, really dominate her. And now it's starting to be that she's putting it all together. And that's what you need moving up the ranks. You saw what happened with Macy Barber. Barber's a big bruising female. She can work top control. She's strong. And she was able to scramble out of certain positions. And with Viviani, the same thing. You see the elevation. You see that she's really putting it all together. And I think probably one of the biggest things that really looks great for her moving forward is she's starting to be built for 5 rounds. She's starting to be the type of female that can last, can fight smart, can fight anywhere the fight goes. And kind of looking at the rest of the division, she's set up for some nice things to kind of happen for her. I think she really can do a lot of great things. So I think moving forward, she's really going to be a spot to look at, possibly wagering, but also just career-wise, I think her trajectory is pretty high.
The body language, composure, the breathing from her, never flustered, always just very calm and in control. It just looked like championship material from her.
Like
So,
she'd been there, yeah, just very relaxed, right?
It was really, really impressive. So great night for Alexa Grasso. Stock is on the rise. What did I learn? Anytime you can bet against a photographer that's trying to be a UFC fighter and you can parlay it against a horrible short notice replacement, let's take advantage. We love breaking down film, and we'll spend hours looking at some of these big fights, and I just missed the most obvious one to make money off of. And in the end, that's our goal. How can we make money off of UFC? We could have parlayed Pete Rodriguez inside the distance and Brito inside the distance. It would have been the easiest cash of the night. No sweat. It's at the beginning of the card that nobody was interested in. Yet it would have been just easy money. And then, hey, we're done. We cashed our big bet. We could have just watched the rest of the card in complete relaxation. I missed this one. I had Brito inside the distance in another parlay, and as soon as Pete Rodriguez took out his opponent, I was just like, oh, no, we missed an easy one. It was right there. So these are not sexy fights to watch, but they're very sexy when they add to your bankroll. So I missed an opportunity to cash a real easy one when you have a photographer trying to be a UFC fighter and a really bad short notice replacement. So don't overlook the easy ones. Sometimes the bets just
gotta look at their hobbies. Gotta look at what they're doing outside. You know what I mean? They even said it when he was coming in. They were like, "Well, he was photographer for Bellator or something like crazy." It was like
he wasn't even a photographer for UFC. He couldn't even photo UFC. Now he's gonna fight in UFC.
Crazy.
So bad. All right. Well, normally we break down the main event of the card, but there's just three massive fights, and we're going to break down all three of them. So we have the Oliveira and Makhachev fight, the Sterling Dillashaw fight, and the Jan O'Malley fight. So we've each taken one fight that we're going to break down and give our thoughts on and how we think we can wager on it. Kyle, coming to you first. You got the big one. Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev. What do you think is going to happen in this fight, and how are you breaking it down?
Well, this one here, I have a lot to say. I'm long-winded, so I'm going to try to keep it a little bit tighter for the show. But first thing being that this is the first time that two fighters on 10-fight winning streaks are fighting in a title fight. So you got that layer of interest there for it. But you also have the fact that this is Khabib Nurmagomedov's protege facing the all-time submission leader in the UFC. So it really brings a chess match to this fight. It really, really does. And when you look at it, the comfort level for Makhachev is going to be getting in the guard, taking guys down, relentless pressure, relentless takedowns, just relentless chain wrestling. Overall, he wants to tire you out, or he's going to be looking to get the takedown, bank some rounds, and kind of move forward in the process that way. But you've got Oliveira, who absolutely loves when guys are in his guard or taking the fight to the ground. And the big part about that is that he's always looked for it. He's looked for the takedowns. He's looked to pull guard. He's looked any way that he possibly could go and get the takedowns. Now you got Makhachev on the other side of this, where really the fact is, does he want to stay there? Does he want to be there? It's a very bad spot. Not that saying that Makhachev is not prepared for it or not good enough to be there, but it's just his comfort zone, and it's a dangerous zone when you look at it. But when you're looking at the striking, really, Oliveira is no longer that one-trick pony. You're seeing the elevation. We're all seeing that elevation where he went from really just kind of this one-trick pony who could really just get these submissions, and maybe he's not battle-tested, to really being a battle-tested striker with weapons all around him. And I think the two biggest things that really go into this fight is the fact that, one, really being that Oliveira can move comfortably forward. He has no issue. He's got no issues worrying about takedowns. He's got no issues about where the fight goes. So he can openly move forward, throw a lot of his big kicks that he does. He does a lot of big movements. That really puts the wrestler in Islam on his back foot. It's going to be harder to get takedowns. I think that starts to lead to problems for him in this fight. And also a big part that I feel like nobody really talks about is the power. He's got power. There's no doubt Oliveira has power. We've seen it. He ended up rocking in the first exchange with Justin Gaethje, and Justin Gaethje has a granite chin, and he rocked him a couple times before he finished him. Even Michael Chandler, same thing, rocked him in that second round. These are strikes. So you're really seeing the evolution of him. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage. And lastly, if you're looking at competition level, I mean, it's really, really, really on different levels. You've got Makhachev, who has fought one ranked fighter in the UFC. That was Dan Hooker. He's 1-4 out of his last 5. That's, you're seeing a decline in him. And then also out of the last 6 bouts that Islam had, 3 of them were short notice for his opponent and for him, but preparing for strikers. And then they're facing Makhachev. A lot of vulnerabilities there, while you've got Oliveira facing killers constantly. So I think the price is very good here. I would actually put this more towards Oliveira, a slight favorite, than a plus 160. So I'm on it. I think it's a great spot, and it's going to be a fun night, but I think he has a great chance to go out there and get this victory.
Yeah, Charles Oliveira plus money has been just an incredible value in the UFC over the years. Really has. 100%. Matt, coming to you, Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw. There is a lot of animosity and a lot of words coming from one side of this fight, and it's coming from Aljamain Sterling. Two polarizing people in the UFC, maybe not for all the right reasons. But how are you breaking down this? This is a big time event. Sterling Dillashaw. What did you see when looking over this fight?
Yeah. So before I even break this down, I want to say that Aljamain Sterling is probably my most disliked fighter in the UFC all time, and TJ Dillashaw is probably top 3. Okay, so I just want to put that out there. So I'm not biased with any guy. I cannot stand Aljamain Sterling. He drives me absolutely nuts. But let's get to breaking this down, all right? Because I do think this is an interesting matchup, despite my hate for both guys. One, stylistically, with Sterling being primarily a wrestler and a submission artist. And then you have someone like TJ Dillashaw, who is a much better striker. He has great in-and-out movement. He's quick on his feet. He mixes in kicks well, elbows, a little bit of everything. And then in addition to that, TJ Dillashaw is an experienced wrestler. You know what I mean? He has a good takedown defense. He keeps distance pretty well. And I do potentially see more paths to victory with Dillashaw when comparing it to Aljamain Sterling. You know, with Aljamain Sterling and his fights with Petr Yan, the first one, he was just getting absolutely ragdolled. I personally think he put the hand down intentionally to draw that knee in. And then the second fight, again, I just think that was a situational fight. I'm trying not to take anything away from Aljamain Sterling because he is a talented fighter. He has beaten some tough guys. But with the first fight occurring, Petr Yan came in and his head was just not on right. You know, he was going for the absolute knockout blow. He wanted to essentially put on a show and make an example of Aljamain Sterling. And in the end, he ended up losing because of it. In this fight with TJ Dillashaw, I do not see that happening. You know, TJ Dillashaw is a 2-time champion. He has been through the ringer before. Go look at his trash talk with Cody Garbrandt, number 1 and number 2. You know, so I do think he is more experienced than Aljamain Sterling. He's more used to the moment. And I think if anyone is actually feeling this pressure, it might be Aljo. Because in reality, this is his first title defense. I don't think many look at the last one as a title defense. So there is more pressure on him to go out and get this victory. And then there's all this talk about if TJ wins this, is he the best bantamweight all time? Things of that nature. And then Aljamain Sterling is trying to slide his name into that conversation when get the hell out of here. So regardless, I got TJ Dillashaw in this fight. Sorry, you're seeing my distaste for Aljamain Sterling. But regardless, I think stylistically this is a great matchup for TJ. Aljamain Sterling in the past likes to get people's back, essentially backpack them the rest of the fight, gaining control time, minutes, things of that nature. You get points for that when it comes down to a decision. I don't think he can do that to TJ. I got TJ here, especially against Aljamain Sterling.
Wow, Matt, not pulling any punches.
He hates those guys. He hates them.
Yeah. I'm glad
not like
that fight to break down. Wow. I am going to take Petr Yan and Sean O'Malley. Who knows what the crowd is going to look like and be behind in this fight. Pretty polarizing couple of fighters here. So I got to start off with the caliber of opponents here. O'Malley's last 4 fights are against Thomas Almeida, 0-4 in his last 4 fights. Chris Matino, 0-2 in the UFC. Paiva, 0-2 his last 2 fights. And then a no contest in round 2 against Munoz, who won round 1, by the way, with only leg kicks. Petr Yan, his last 4 fights, title fights. So quite the discrepancy here on the caliber of opponents and the caliber of fights that these guys have had. Stylistically, this just comes down to, can O'Malley keep Yan at distance? Can he use those long legs, those front kicks, possibly calf kicks to work the body and the legs of Petr Yan? Munoz, we saw Munoz do a fantastic job against O'Malley in creating that wide distance to where O'Malley couldn't work the jabs and work the kicks. And Munoz would dive in with great leg kicks, then get back to distance. It took O'Malley quite a bit of time to figure it out. He lost round 1. He struggled with it. I think Yan will implement some of the same attack where there's a lot of keeping the distance and then diving in with some punches, maybe some kicks. Now, O'Malley can land those front kicks, and with a huge height and reach advantage, he has the tools to really do some damage on Yan when Yan dips in to get those strikes. The problem for O'Malley, he can be predictable, and Yan got such a great fight IQ. I don't think it's going to take him that long to figure out O'Malley's timing unless O'Malley can figure out a way to switch it up and confuse Yan. And Yan, what I worry about him is if he does get caught several times on some jabs or some kicks when he's diving in to try and land those punches in the first round against O'Malley. So the other worry with Yan, and this is going to lead into my prediction for this fight, is he starts slow. He downloads information, and you've seen him start off slow and then pull away as the fight goes on. This is only 3 rounds. In all of Yan's last 4 fights, he was either down going into round 3 or it was 1-1. You can't get away with this with O'Malley. You can't just throw away the first round in a 3-round fight to Sean O'Malley to try and figure out the timing. It's too dangerous. This also falls into my 1-1 theory that I think a lot of judges would really like fights to be 1-1 going into the third. So, like, if the round 1 is close and the judges give it to fighter A, if round 2 is even remotely close, they're going to give it to fighter B. That way, the third round kind of decides it. Would not surprise me in the slightest if this thing is 1-1 going into third, which is why I'm going to take this fight at plus 450 to go with a split decision or a majority decision. I don't see either one of these guys pulling away. The odds have this at minus 175 just to go the distance. So at plus 450, if I can get a split on the first couple rounds, I think this ends up a split decision, and I think Yan loses the first round. So, guys, I'm gonna take split decision at a pretty tasty plus 450. I think it's closer.
That's juicy. That's very juicy.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with. I just don't think in a 3-round fight Yan should be this big of a favorite when he starts off so slow. He could easily be down a round, and all of a sudden there's rounds 2 and 3. So, all right, gentlemen, that is the main event breakdown. We're now going to move on to some fights that we're excited to watch. This could be because we think we have a good betting angle or it's a good stylistic matchup. Kyle, I am going to come to you first. You're going to talk about Beneil Dariush and Matej Gamrot. Why did you pick this fight as one that you're excited to watch?
Yeah, this one here I think is definitely interesting because there's a couple layers to this one. And I think the first thing is that whoever wins this fight really puts themselves in a great position for a title shot. Maybe you're a fight off, but you're on the cusp of really doing some great things. And you had Beneil Dariush, who was, lost 3 straight fights a couple years ago, have won 7 straight, and he's looked good in certain spots. In his last fight, he ended up beating Tony Ferguson, and even in that fight, this was kind of before we knew Tony was kind of falling off of a cliff. He looked good. He ran out there, he dominated the grappling. Anywhere the fight went, he did look good. He ended up suffering an ankle injury. He was supposed to fight Makhachev. That didn't happen, and now he kind of was pushed to the side. Now you have Matej Gamrot, who is really starting to blossom. When you look at, he's 21-1. He's he was the KSW 2-division champion. He came into the UFC, did lose a split decision, but since then he's looked great. 3 straight finishes, and most impressively, and I am very big on Sarukian, but Arman Sarukian versus Gamrot is a fantastic fight. It's a high level fight, and this was one where really it was kind of supposed to be a Sarukian show, and Gamrot came out there, showed what he can do. He is good pretty much anywhere the fight goes. He ended up winning the decision, so that's big on that part. But really look at what he does, and Gamrot does everything. Where you're talking about grappling, you're talking about he's got cardio, he's got good striking, he can, has good pace, and those are the things I think somebody like Beneil could struggle with. It definitely could struggle with. He's got some good striking, he's got some good ability too, but I really think this is a spot where Gamrot could really, really show out. And again, this isn't one I haven't bet yet, but it is a spot that I do like. I would definitely look at Gamrot here, but it's an exciting fight because there is a lot of implications where you've got so many high other level fights that are really kind of taking the spotlight. This one definitely has a big interest and title contender implications.
Mute.
You're mute, I think.
Yeah, I think I'm mute.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. I was so excited. I was getting so excited thinking about the Gamrot Sarukian fight. I really wanted to go watch it again. Yeah. No, this Dariush Gamrot fight, this could be a main event on some cards. This is such a high level fight. So I'm excited to watch that one as well. I am going to take a look at Sean Brady versus Belal Muhammad as my fight I'm excited to watch. I'm excited to see the forward pressure and the wrestling of Sean Brady going up against, the fight IQ of Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad, will just say, not beloved by every UFC fan because his fights tend to be fairly boring, but this guy just knows how to win. He knows how to read his opponents, and he knows how to just win these rounds. You saw it on full display against Luque where he was losing on the feet. And what did he do? Realized Luque had a big hole in his game with takedowns and just took advantage to sneak out some rounds. Sean Brady, I thought he looked good against Chiesa, but that fight was very, very close. I thought Chiesa won a lot of the stand-up, and Brady, give him credit, just whenever he got in trouble, was able to utilize the wrestling, and once he got his arms around Chiesa, he was able to take him down and win rounds as well. I would expect Belal Muhammad to really use his speed, make Brady chase him, and Belal Muhammad is sneaky enough to win a couple of rounds just by getting out of the way of Sean Brady. Now, if Brady does get his hands and his arms around Belal Muhammad and gets him down, Brady could keep him down there and just, win the round, no question. But I just don't overestimate Belal Muhammad. I actually find his fights a little bit interesting because I like watching him read his opponents and find the best ways to win the rounds. It's not the most exciting overall fight, but I do kind of enjoy it. This is a great test for Sean Brady, and if Brady passes this test with flying colors, look out. The sky's the limit for Brady. So going to be a great, great test for him, and we're going to learn a lot about Sean Brady in this one. Matt, coming to you, go ahead and talk about the fight that you are excited to watch this Saturday.
So this Saturday, I'm excited to watch Zubaira Tukhugov versus Lucas Almeida. And one reason that I'm so excited to watch this fight, a lot of it has to do with Lucas Almeida and how he just brings it every single time. He's fought 15 times and only once has his fights gone to a decision. So anytime he steps in the ring, you know what he's going to bring. He's going to come forward. He is going to throw bombs, and he is going to keep coming. But one thing I will say with Almeida is right around the 2:30, 3-minute mark, every single round, you'll see him start to fade just a little bit. And when looking at Tukhugov, I think he's a solid dance partner, honestly. He is someone who has now joined the Khabib camp, so he's going to have good wrestling. He's going to have good cardio on top of that. That's a huge thing. So I think he definitely has a cardio advantage to Almeida. But, Tukhugov is a willing dance partner with Almeida. He throws hard. He did who did he knock out, was it? He knocked out, not Ricardo Ramos. Who was it again? Kevin Aguilar. That's who it was. Kevin Aguilar. I'm sorry. But yeah, so he has had some solid knockouts. He's had better opponents than that of Almeida. Almeida lost in Dana White's Contender Series to an 18-year-old as well. So one thing I might add is Almeida might not be very disciplined. His fight IQ might not be that great if an 18-year-old was able to come in and beat him. So because of that, I do like Tukhugov in this matchup. I think he's worth a look, most definitely. Almeida definitely has that power in his hands, and he is going to throw bombs. the entire fight. You can count on that. But that's what's going to make this exciting. I think Takugov will throw back for a certain amount of time. But one thing that Almeida also does is he leaves himself susceptible to the takedown because he's throwing so hard. Once again, going back to that fight IQ. Because of that, I think Takugov can take him down, ground and pound, things of that nature. But all in all, it's a very good stylistic matchup, and one that both are going to come forward and throw bombs. So I'm excited for it.
Great stuff from Matt Kowalis at sportsmemo.com. We've got a promo code that works for all three of us. Promo code UFC50. That's UFC50. Gets 50% off a fight pack. That's good for all three of us. Kyle already has a 5% play up. I've got a 5% play up, and Matt has a 4-fight pack. You can use it once, twice. Might as well use it all 3 times. All three can turn a profit on this huge card. A lot of great betting opportunities. All three of us have you covered. Gentlemen, it's time to take a look at our Parlay Buster, our fight to go the distance, and our money line fight at -200 less. We're going to start with the Parlay Buster. There's one of these every week. Victor Henry was the Parlay Buster. We're trying to sniff these out and see which ones everyone's going to put in their parlays that we're very nervous about. Kyle, you got the Parlay Buster this week. Who should people be nervous about putting in their parlays?
Well, this week, I think we're going to be looking at Manon Fiorot, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And she's a good fighter. I think highly of her, actually. I think that she's kind of moving up. She has some strength. There's some good things that she does do. It's just the issue is anybody that fights Caitlin Chikagian, somehow, some way, Caitlin Chikagian makes it a close fight. Just somehow, some way. And it's not that she's this intimidating, imposing female. She just has pace. She can really keep, good movement, good strikes. She wants to yell and scream after every single strike. That helps her too a little bit. So just the way that she goes out there and puts on this performance each time is very difficult for females to go out there and really dominate or really take away a round from her. It's very difficult for that. And now if you also look at the fact that the experience level, this is double the experience level of just number of fights that Caitlin Chikagian has over Manon. But not only that, it's just the caliber. I mean, if you look at the fact of the competition level, since 2016, that's when Chikagian got to the UFC, she's 11-4. The only 4 losses that she did suffer was Jessica Andrade, Valentina Shevchenko, Jessica Ai back in 2018, and Liz Carmouche back in 2016. So she doesn't lose to a bunch of stiffs. These are at least caliber women that have been in the top, been ranked, been up there for a while. So I think those are the things that she can take. And then if you're also looking at this as the fact that when Caitlin Chikagian fights, she is very good at 1, keeping it close, but 2, going to the distance, and she's very tough to finish. She's not someone that can be finished very well. She's only been finished 2 times in her UFC career, and that was Jessica Andrade and Valentina Shevchenko. I don't put Fury in that caliber of a fight, but the reason why it's going to be more of the Parlay Buster is because I just think it's going to be very close. We talked about it in some of our other Parlay Busters where if it becomes a 29-28 and you're going to a decision, a lot of the value is gone and you're just praying for dear life that you caught one of the rounds. I think this fight can be very close, ugly, and just one of those ones that you may not want to watch, but it's going to be one of those fights where I think Caitlin can keep it close, and I think you want to just be a little cautious when it comes to Manon in your parlays.
Interesting scenario. Grasso coming off an impressive win. If Fiorot gets this win, I think it's toss-up. Who gets the title shot?
Yeah,
it could be really interesting. Both very, very impressive. I love Fiorot. I've cashed on her many times. But the grunts and groans after every Chikagian punch is just
they win rounds. I don't get it. They win
nervous.
Rounds.
They do.
I
the
think
judges are like, oh, she grunted.
Yeah.
Oh,
you heard that? Yeah, that means.
Yeah, it landed.
It landed. I only grunt if it lands. Oh, good stuff. Be careful about Fiorot in your parlays. I'm going to take a fight to go the distance, and I can get this at a beautiful price of +110. Give me Makhmed Muradov versus Caio Borralho. I followed Borralho since he was in Contender Series. He loves to wrestle, grapple, take guys down, and win by decision. And his first fight on Dana White Contender Series, he did just that. And he was very proud of himself, except Dana White said, no, I'm looking for guys to finish. And even though he had a dominating victory on his first fight contender series, they made him come back. He knocked the guy out pretty easily. It was a sacrificial lamb type of fight. But Borralho comes into UFC and goes right back to what he's best at, and that is pushing forward, using his long legs to establish distance, and then double leg shoot downs, and will fight and fight and fight to get him. And once he gets you down, it's going to be a long, long round. And I think this is what he does against Muradov. I saw some pretty big holes in Muradov's game where he started his UFC career with some pretty easy caliber of opponents. And then he fought Meerschaert, and he landed shots early on Meerschaert. Meerschaert kept coming forward, bided his time, got a hold of him in the second round, took him down, and submitted him. I think this goes the distance because Kyle Borralho is not necessarily looking for submissions like Meerschaert. Meerschaert's just a submission specialist. Borralho looks to grind you out and get to a victory through the judges. Muradov, he's got good striking, except the guys he's beaten in UFC are nowhere near the caliber as Kyle Borralho is. I think Muradov is going to try the striking. I think Borralho is going to do a great job at pushing the distance. The other thing about Muradov, he's got 2 knockouts, but they were in the 3rd round in UFC. So this isn't like a guy who comes in and gets these big, huge first round knockouts. Both of these guys, their fights go pretty deep into it. And at plus money for a fight to go the distance, I'll take it all day. Kyle Borralho is a minus 200 or more favorite. And if he wins, it's going to be by decision. So look for Borralho to look for the takedowns. If it goes down to the ground, it's going to be a somewhat boring, low-paced fight with Borralho wrapping up and going to the scorecards. Muradov may try and stay alive, but either way, plus 110 at this fight to go the distance is a bargain. Give me that as the distance fight. Matt, coming to you, we are looking for a money line fight that is minus 200 or better. We've already talked about Dariush and Gamrot, but let's give out some actionable information in a way that we can bet this fight. What do you like in Dariush and Gamrot?
Yeah, so with Dariush and Gamrot, I'm all about Gamrot here. When looking at Beneil Dariush and his past fights, I honestly give the edge to Gamrot, and he's far newer to the UFC. When looking at Beneil Dariush, his best fight to date was obviously Tony Ferguson. When that fight occurred, though, we didn't know that he was about to fall off a cliff and lose every fight after that. In addition, he's beaten guys like Drew Dober, Drakkar Klose, which was a nice win. But when looking at Gamrot, he has never fought anyone close to Gamrot's style, strength, wrestling ability, anything along those lines. So yes, he is the minus 190 favorite in this fight, but I believe it's adequate, and I would still go with him here. When looking at Gamrot, he is strong all over the place. He's going to be better on his feet. He's going to be better in terms of wrestling, grappling, and takedowns. This is a fighter who has a 90% takedown defense and also fought Arman Tsarukyan last fight. And both of these guys, Gamrot and Tsarukyan have championship level capabilities, and it just so happened that Gamrot was the one that got that victory. And if you want to see Gamrot's ability or even Tsarukyan's ability, go back and watch that fight. I know we already talked about it, but it really was one of the better fights I've ever watched, and just high skill from both guys, especially in terms of grappling and wrestling. And that's where I think Gamrot wins this fight. Dariush, his best ability is taking it to the ground and having the ability to control on the ground and do damage on that ground. If you can't get Gamrot to the ground, he is the better striker. He's the more powerful striker. He's the better grappler. So for me, I think Gamrot is a very safe pick when looking at Beneil Dariush. Again, when looking over Dariush's track record, Gamrot is by far going to be the toughest fight he's had. Gamrot has already faced someone like Tsarukyan, who I think will be comparable or better than Beneil Dariush. And because of that, I give Gamrot the edge here. I think Dariush has been off too long as well. Gamrot has been the more active fighter. And when you've been off that long and your last fight was Tony Ferguson, and then you come in to fight Gamrot, I think you can be surprised pretty fast. So I like Gamrot here in this fight.
I love it, Matt. Dariush, maybe a little bit of cardio issues at the end of his last couple fights. Gamrot, not a guy you want to have some cardio issues.
Dude, he is that guy is
Yeah, he's good.
He is.
Good stuff there for Matt. All right, let's do a little recap here. Take a look at our Parlay Buster, our fight to go the distance, and the money line. Kyle thinks you should be a little bit nervous about putting Fiorot at minus 230 in your parlays. I like Muradov and Baralo to go the distance. And Matt likes Gamrot at minus 190 as our fight that is minus 200 or better as his best bet. Promo code, guys, UFC 50, UFC 50 gets 50% off of fight packs for myself, for Kyle, and for Matt. Matt, you can find at sportsmemo.com. Kyle and myself at WagerTalk.com. Gentlemen, it should be an incredible UFC 280. Just a reminder, this is a morning start, so don't wait till Saturday to watch the fights. Don't try and put your bets in on Saturday afternoon or evening. Let's get these bets in ASAP. 7 o'clock start on the West Coast, 10 o'clock on the East Coast. So, gentlemen, let's have a great UFC 280, and we've got about 5 more fights in a row, or 5 more events in a row coming up after this. So we got a lot of good stuff coming up for everyone on Inside the Distance. Good luck. Let's have a great weekend, guys. We'll see you next week on Inside the Distance.
Opening night of the NBA season is close. It's Tuesday, October 18th. Do you think the Golden State Warriors can repeat? To celebrate the start of the season, we are offering you a 7-day NBA package for only $49. Yes, that's only $7 a day, and it will be valid through Sunday, October 23rd at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo. There is no limit to the number of handicappers that you can get. Just head to your favorite capper's homepage.